An American surgeon bragging that he had performed more than 3,000 double mastectomies on young women who had paid for gender reassignment. Individuals confused, one might say encouraged, by those who profit from it into believing that their adolescent emotional trials can be cured and happiness reign forever if they subject themselves to this brutal practice. A process that often includes not only the aforementioned mastectomies, but other appalling surgical processes. Orchiectomy, that's castration in blunter language, the removal of the uterus, the demolition of the musculature of the forearm, to make what is not a penis, but must be referred to as such. For someone purporting to be a physician to perform this on children, to me at least, seems like something worthy of a prison sentence. The Hippocratic Oath has been replaced by a delusion, a belief that can be summarized as, by blocking the puberty of children and then surgically altering them, we are only restoring what is theirs by right. A child's feelings are the final arbiters of their reproductive destiny, and any attempt to contest their gender identity risks increasing their proclivity for suicide. Lies. Then, butchery. Psychologists, those in my own personal field of medicine, have also surrendered to this groupthink. Practitioners are also asked to examine how their language, e.g., use of incorrect pronouns and names, may reinforce the gender binary in overt or subtle and unintentional ways. These guidelines first read like a manual of indoctrination written by Marxist ideologues, and second, like a document designed to undermine and destroy the practice of therapy itself. It is not the place of a therapist to affirm or conversely to deny the identity of anyone whom they admit into their care. People come to see a therapist often after long and painful deliberation because they are suffering, confused, or both. The job of that therapist is to listen, to question, and to proceed with due caution. There is simply no way I would ever tell a 15-year-old adolescent that she is absolutely correct if sometimes she feels more masculine than feminine, however that feeling might emerge, and that if she feels that surgery is the answer, then recommend hormones that day. I would instead spend many weeks, even perhaps many months or years, listening to her unwrap her story, using caution as my watchword, and help her to come to some thorough and well-developed understanding of both her autobiographical history and her destiny. Guideline 1. Psychologists understand that gender is a non-binary construct that allows for a range of gender identities, and that a person's gender identity may not align with sex assigned at birth. I don't understand this radical postmodern definition of gender, one that rests on a person's deeply felt or inherent sense of being one sex over another, regardless of biology. Guideline 7. Psychologists understand the need to promote social change that reduces the negative effects of stigma on the health and well-being of TGNC people. In summary, if you're not an activist and one of our activists, then you better be watching over your shoulder. So what should govern my behavior as a therapist and your expectations as a client? The answer to that is whatever the activists deem a priority at their whim. And remember that in court, folks. I'm increasingly ashamed to be a clinical psychologist given the utter cowardice, spinelessness, and apathy that characterizes many colleagues, and even more so my professional associations. At least in 20 years, when we all come to regret this terrible social experiment, I may be able to say, I said no when they all came to insist that we participate in the sacrifice of our children. And, by the way, It will most definitely be the case that a disproportionate number of children freed from their hypothetical gender confusion would have grown up to be physically intact and fully functional gay adults. Need I point out that this unpalatable fact makes a mockery of any claim that the extended alphabet world of the LGBTQ plus coterie in any sense constitutes a homogenous and unified community. We have crossed the line from ideological possession to active malevolence, and we are multiplying our sin by attributing our appalling actions to compassion. Heaven help us.
Damn right.
Truly.
True that. True that. So what you're going to notice when you're looking around in the, start with the cloud level. I'm going to start going in on the moon very soon. I'm just going to work my way through some of the Candace Owens series. That's what I'm doing right now. But Jordan, when you come to these videos, hopefully you do. It's always my hope. You're going to notice that the imagery is feline, canine, rodent, ape, human, and beast. As human beings, you're going to be tempted to count them, especially you like math and believe in science and everything like that. So you'll be counting them as one thing, which is a great thing to do, because what you'll notice is there's no division, there's no separation anywhere from the veil to the ground. I explained it in a couple other earlier videos. I'll keep throwing it out there at you as I go along. Let's see what this is. But anyways, the transgender thing, feline, canine, rodent, ape, human, and beast, it's without body imagery. It's faces only. So without body imagery, we as human beings are going to have a hard time. Yeah, this looks good. I never know why the camera does this sometimes, but it's fine. I can live with it. Yeah, sometimes it just goes sideways on me. It's weird. See if it's any good, though. This thing's still playing games. Hard to say. Anyhow, feline, canine, rodent, ape, human, and beast, faces only, no body imagery. So how do you define sex? So you'll have feminine lips, what we as humans would consider feminine lips. You'll see them every once in a while. They'll stand out at you. Eyelashes, longer eyelashes, I'll sometimes catch. I, as a human, would attribute this as femininity. So in other words, that's just my assumption because of my upbringing, is the way, my environment, whatever, my thoughts, teaching, consciousness, my brain, my memory. All right, that led me to believe that anytime I seen these lips or these larger eyelashes, that I was going to be looking at an image of a female that the true creator had, was showing me, right? But then as time was going on, as I kept on looking, and given some thought even to my own life, the femininity part of it is really a human thing. So I started thinking about, dating girls that looked like their father or brother. If I had done that in my lifetime, how I felt, and it was just sometimes too weird. Sometimes I could get it out of my mind. Some maybe they had large breasts, right? So they had big boobs or whatever, or they had a really feminine body, so that I could overlook the idea that they looked so much like their father or their brother. Makeup was a big help, but at nighttime when you're going to bed, makeup's usually coming off, so you have all these issues. And they're not really issues. It's just things that to think about as you're looking around. So the femininity is really just us. Again, another human concept. Uh, I'm not talking about the difference between a man and a woman as far as a vagina obviously is a woman. Penis belongs to a man. I gotcha. Breast, breasts seem to be nowadays. Everybody's so fat, we all got them. But real breasts, women's breasts, are obviously, and then the womb and all that. I get all that. That's not really what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about is the appearance, the looks of the face, the facial features. Okay, um, because that's all you're gonna get when you're looking at the true creator's work. What I'm showing you now, it's all face within face within face. There is no body imagery. With that said, there is some body imagery. I will show it to you in the future, but when you compare it to what you're going to see throughout your normal day from now on, once you start looking, you're going to notice that there's really no body imagery. It's very, very rare. The only place that we find body imagery, for the most part, is in the moon. And that might be a reason for that, is maybe because I've been looking for evidence in rocks and stones and other things that do not move. Even if I crack a rock in half or break it several times and look on the inside of it compared to the outside of it and all that kind of thing. And when I'm looking at the imagery, the moon has full body images, and it also has femininity, breasts, and no, I can't say vaginas, but breasts and more feminine features. The shapes of their bodies are obviously feminine. Even one of them that has a tail still shows femininity. Maybe something to do with the feline femininity and when we were divided. Because the creator slash false creator, best I can get it figured out so far, has based everything on division, dividing himself from the true creator's work and then going from there. That was one of the things that I was trying to stress in the last series, was that nationalities, races, and colors can all be figured out when we were divided. So if the penis fits the vagina, then we know we were divided by color, nationality, then sex. You know what I'm saying? Because if we were divided by sex first, then every penis would fit every vagina. So that alone, let alone there's many other things too that make that connection for me. But the penis vagina ratio sizes tells me that that's one of the, and I can't do that with everything, but I can do it with some of them. You can look and say, okay, when did the true creator, when the true creator's work was stolen and the work started going, and you can also figure that out too. When was the sun and moon divided? Well, that would have been to protect the biosystem. So we can look back and say, okay, when we were more synthetic, the sun and the moon were not even necessary, because the veil was not even necessary to protect us. The veil is there, the carbon veil that really is all around us. I describe it as a veil, but we are in it. So you can also describe it as a snow globe, right? Snow globe, we have glass on the outside of it, to protect the water and the sparkly shit from all falling out onto the floor and everything. So there is an outside layer to this veil. So all the stars are in the veil, what we call planets, and under the geocentric model, they called wandering stars. They were closer. The geocentric model was much closer. It's very electrical. Matter of fact, it is an electrical system. It's an electromagnetic nanocarbon system, to be more specific. I make up new terminology, and I make up my own terminology because everything has been hijacked, fucked with, misinterpreted, lied about. So I have to do that as I go along. And I've actually changed even more words. I'm no longer going to use the word nano anymore after this series. And during this series, I'm going to change the word to nanoless, because it's actually smaller than nano anyway. And, or at least has that capability to appear smaller than nano anyway. And I also want to get rid of the O's. I'm getting rid of circles, O's, and zeros. It's not a game. I'm not fucking around. I'm not playing the game. So these zeros, O's, and circles are all leaving. and we can still use them, but I mean, as far as pretending that they belong there naturally, that it's a natural thing, no, 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 it's all done. Um, so, so back to this transgender shit. So the transgender thing is a big difference than some of the other what we would call evil things, the pedophilia, and what we're all watching. I mean, just had some parents over picking up their kids the other day, and I shut the video off purposely because I wanted to throw some shit at him, and I didn't want to, he knows that I make these videos, so he probably wouldn't have talked anyways. So I made sure that he saw me shut the camera off. But I was doing these cloud research videos, collecting EMNC from the cloud level, and we started talking about the kids, and their daughter was going to a new school, 45-minute ride, got big complaints about the gas. Now that the gas is way up, he's a liberal douchebag. Doesn't even realize that Massachusetts is full of liberal douchebags, and he's one himself. I don't even think he sees it. But anyways, and I'm not trying to rank on the guy. I mean, whatever, he can do whatever the hell he wants. It's surrounded by it anyway, so he's just one of the club. But he was so excited over the years, and I told him about the economy crash, and he didn't believe that. That was going back all the way to Obama. We were talking about that shit, and I was like, nah, it's coming. It's coming because I tried, I printed up, I mentioned before, the Agenda 21, which was supposed to be a conspiracy theory, not really a true conspiracy, just conspiracy theory. Don't pay attention to it. Only crazies and weirdos even think about any of this shit. So anyways, I used to print them up and hand them out to everybody, and he was one of them. I gave them to, never looked at it, never even thought about it or whatever. And anyway, so a lot of things came to fruition, and he was never came to me, and just like nobody does, and then he'll come and say, hey man, that was weird that you were right on the money about this or that. Not that I'm looking for that, but it feel nice, it would feel good once in a while if someone, but they never do. They never wake up. No one ever really truly awakens. They'll be woke, but they won't awaken. And woke is a liberal douche term, and waken is a conservative douche term. So it doesn't really matter which one you go. They're all bad. But I don't have any other terminology, so that's what I use. Anyways, so as we got into talking about a whole bunch of crap, which would have been great to have video, a soundtrack to, but it's okay. No big deal. I'm just shooting the shit. So their daughter's going to this school. They're all excited about it, except for the gas at the beginning of the conversation. And then as they start telling me all the things they're excited about, I'm like, that really sucks, man. So they can't even call each other boys and girls. No, if the teachers say boys and girls, good morning, boys and girls, none of that. If they do, then they could be in trouble. They get suspended. And I'm like, that's weird. I said, I was pissed off because they came home. My kids came home with a story about one of the teachers getting suspended 3 days for calling a kid big ears because they got one of these wise ass teachers who, will pick on the kid. He's just teasing. He's teasing. He's not even. I mean, I'm against the whole thing of bully phone lines and everything for that reason. Because first of all, you're turning the kids into little pussies who can't control their own lives. And we as parents are bad enough at doing that already. In other words, we do it already ourselves as parents. So to send them to school, and the school does the same shit. My kids don't take off on their bikes all day like I used to do when I was a kid. My kids don't go off running, taking walks, and going around getting in trouble and fucking coming home, the cops bringing them home, and all this. They're not going to be that type of kids. But I wasn't the only little asshole when I was a kid. And is that really a little asshole having freedom to do things? Maybe I took them a little too far sometimes, and that's why I'd get in trouble. Maybe not everybody would get in trouble, but everybody would certainly be in a certain amount of danger. There's cars driving all over the place, so if you're not paying attention on your bike, you can get yourself killed or hurt. There's all kinds of there's bad people out there in the world. You got to watch out for them. You got to know how to fight. You got to know how to run. You got to know, you got to know. We don't do that with our kids anymore. We keep them locked up, and we're grateful that they're staring at a fucking computer screen all damn day, because at least they're not in danger. They're in more fucking danger being in front of that computer screen than they ever would be on the street. The people on the street are more trustable, at least for the majority. So yeah, you always got to teach them to be smart and be wise, and not getting any shit that's going to destroy their lives, or put themselves in harm's way. That we just don't. It's a different time, and even though I'm aware of it and I'm conscious of it, and I sometimes force myself to go against my instinct, and then they usually screw me over. Like I'll see them go down to the bottom of the hill with the bikes and not step on the brakes, and take the corner tight, and they go right into the street as if no car could ever be coming up the street at 35 miles an hour, and just take them out in a second, right? Are they that fucking dumb? Well, we kind of did it to them because we were not letting them out. We weren't letting them to learn. So it's our own fault. So anyway, back to the story. So they're telling me about the daughter's great school and everything like that, and they're so advanced and all this stuff. And I was saying, well, it kind of pissed me off. I said, because they sent the kids home too, like a month or two back, with the paper that said, it was a homework assignment too, which was pretty ballsy, really. It's almost like they're rubbing it in parents' faces. Okay, it said how black people saved America, or created America, somewhere along those lines, in the Civil War. The black slaves saved America and saved us in the Civil War, or something along those lines. So right away, your head starts spinning in all different directions, because you're saying, okay, I got to talk to them about this, because number one, I don't want to sound racist, right? Nobody wants their kids to be racist assholes. So, I have to make sure when I talk to them about this. So of course I do right away. It only takes me a couple seconds to figure out how I'm going to do it. And I start talking to my daughter about it first. And I'm like, okay, well, they sent you this. I said, this is a scam and a trick. And I'm not going to tell you this so that you are going to be racist against black people, because even black people know the facts to this, and it's not good. There's a lot of reasons why blacks have been held back over time. We can look at their statistics, the abortions, the locking them up, the not giving them a fair chance at things. We can talk about a lot of things, but let's be realistic about them at least. So they freed themselves from slavery by joining the war, but we have to look. So of course I had to send them on the biggest liars ever, but what are you going to do? So I go to Google and look up how many African Americans were in that war. So she goes, looks up, and I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head. I think I was throwing out the number of 3,000 to 4,000, something along those lines. 3,000 to 4,000 black people, black men only, because we were still discriminating against women at that time. Nowadays we don't discriminate, so now women, our daughters and wives, can be drafted, not only drafted, but they can be pregnant and fly a jet. They can go in combat pregnant. I mean, it's just so ridiculous, right? It's gotten so twisted the other way. So anyway, she looks it up and she comes up with that number. Then the total, I mean, you got to remember, we're not dealing with 7.8 billion zombie slaves at that time. And we definitely did not have 350 million zombie slaves in the United States at that time. So I made her look them numbers up, because again, my memory is not good. And Google told her that there was 30-something thousand soldiers in that war. 34,000 maybe, or something like that. So go fact check it, if you're worried about it. Whatever, I'm just talking. So anyways, so I was trying to point out to them So to my kids about how this was all going down. And so you see what they're doing. Now this is not to take away from real struggles of black people, because black people have been struggling with a lot of different things, and we can talk about all those things and how it all went down. But let's be honest about it, and let's not exaggerate and play it off the other way, because that it's purposeful. It's to get white people and white parents that fought in these wars too to free black slaves, because they knew there was something wrong with the terminology of slaves, calling them slaves, and treating them. Obviously, so we can really look at the real numbers and say, okay, so we're talking about 1/3 of the population at a time when there was only a few million in the country, using only this country in the United States as the example at that time. Um, so okay, so so this is not as big of a thing, and it doesn't include us, and we're talking about an awful long time ago, and we're talking about a lot of history in between, and we've been worse to ourselves than we have to even them, and we're all fucked up. So we can get into talking about all those things later. So anyways, I started telling the parents some of that story. Oh, you can't be racist. I'm like, I'm not being racist. There's nothing racist about it. Oh, well, it just sounds racist because the school is telling them that this is it. You're looking at it the wrong way. I said, no, I'm not. I'm looking at it exactly for what it was. When you read down the homework assignment and when you look at what the homework was, it was more honest than the title was. The title was the one that was bothering me. The rest of the assignment, I would have only changed a couple of little words in there or whatever. But what I'm telling you was actually in the assignment. Telling the kids what role the slaves played, and how they earned their freedom by participating in this war and all this stuff. They don't talk too much about patting any white people on the back for the same thing, for being in the war that was ending the slavery that they claimed to hate so much. So that was a little strange, but that might have been something I would have added or what. But again, it wasn't all as divided as the title. The title of it was caused division as soon as you read it, and you say, "Oh, okay, so I see what they're up to." So it's purposeful to get white parents upset about this so that they would mistakenly fall for the trap. Either you don't fall for it, say nothing, and things just keep getting worse, or you open your mouth and say, well, that's not right, it shouldn't be worded that way, and then all of a sudden now you're called a racist for saying that it shouldn't be worded that way because it's not true that way, it's not a true statement. So why don't we just correct a few things and we can properly do it, because there's a lot worse things that we did to black people than that, right? So let's talk about those things. The abortion rate, for example, I mean, they're way over aborted, black humans. I mean, everybody is, but black humans more so. It's population control on all sides, but as far as the blacks go, they're being kept down to a 12-13% range, and it seems to be that way even in their own countries, even in their own lands, right? So when you go to Africa, you see South Africa and North Africa, they're almost 50-50. Oh, I gotta fix this. I mean, they're almost 50-50 unless I'm mistaken. I know if you go to any other brown country, if you get away from the blacks, brown, same thing. A lot of them have been, let's see what this is all about. Yeah. So, there's certain ones that have not. Maybe the climates are not good enough. They're not perfect or something like that. I was thinking of, Hawaii is a brown state, and things like that. Anyway, what the fuck am I at for minutes here? I ramble on so much. No, I don't even remember what the hell I was going. Okay, so these parents are going on about, so I mentioned about that, so we got through that conversation, and then the next thing we talked about the school, but how great it was the transgender bathrooms. I brought up about boys taking advantage of that, and a couple girls that got molested and raped and everything. So really, they should have their own bed. We got into. I asked them if they heard about the fag drag bullshit that was going on in New York, and they didn't know anything about that. When they were telling me about the school, because they were saying that it's great that all this transgenderism things going on and everything. It's so great that the school is open about this, and everybody's got blue and purple hair to show their pride and all this stuff, and they have every right to get these surgeries that this guy that you, Jordan, was just talking about. Now children have the right to make these decisions, and it'll be paid for, and blah blah blah. So I'm like, okay, so it sounds like you're really excited about it all. I said, so you hear about the fag drag going on in New York? And no, I didn't. I said, okay, well, the thing is that bothers me about drag queens is that they're not really transgender. They don't want to be transgender. They're not necessarily gay. They're not really, they don't all have to be gay. Just because they're dressed like a woman, you assume that they are transgender or want to be trans or something like that. But that's not what I'm seeing, and I never have. It's almost like Illuminati Freemason garbage as far as I'm concerned, because it's all this twisted, and there's other names for the Illuminati Freemason too, because there's their arch enemies like the Bush family, right? What are they called? The Cross and Bones, right? The Cross and Bones, or whatever the hell it is. Skull and Crossbones. So if you're a Skull and Crossbones, you're supposed to be the opposite of Freemasonry, but yet for some reason they all have the same target. They're just supposed to keep it 50-50, but they always run 80-40, sometimes a little different, the numbers are off, and that's when things get really bad for the human population, because they're all over the earth. It's not a United States thing. They're all over this earth, that they all work together. Because the Earth is much smaller, and the whole system is much smaller than we think it is. That's why they tell you it's the vast of outer space, and it goes on forever and ever, because they want you to feel that way, that everything's hopeless, and it's so big that you would never stand a chance, and you're just a small particle of dust in this big, vast, never-ending world. They'll call it a world, which I try to avoid doing. Universe, they'll add to it and make it sound that way too. It's not. It's nothing like that. You are a lot closer with your earlier religions of God, Jesus, Muhammad. You were a lot closer with it with those. And then if you go back before those religions, back to sun God, moon God, stone God, earth God, animal gods, that kind of thing. You were even closer then, under the geocentric models and under other religion. Back to what I'm saying. I'm so fucking bad at staying focused. So I was talking to them about all this, talking just as fast and as ridiculous as I am right now, trying to get to the bottom of why they think that all these things are great, and they said they didn't know nothing about it. I said, okay, well, parents, you see them lined up, and they're letting their kids go down on the stage and put dollar bills in, which is pretty cheap. I mean, what the hell stripper is stripping for $1 bill in their garter belt, right? Whether they're drag queens or regular female or male strippers. Are you kidding me? Are you talking $10 to $20 a pop nowadays? They laugh at dollar bills. So, anyways. What a terrible thing to teach kids, whatever stripper it is. Don't you think, is my question, because I can't say anything opinionative, but don't you think that's a little strange that thousands of parents think it's okay to do, and then tens of thousands of parents out there, tens of thousands, all go along with it as if it's normal for those couple thousand parents to go do and say, oh yeah, that's cool. I mean, do you think we're a little fucky here? Things are a little off. So they didn't know about that. Then we got into talking a little bit about a drag stuff and transgenderism stuff. I said, okay, well, so I said, it sounds like you're okay with your daughter's school, but I said, you do know that they got the word now also, along with that, no saying boy and girl, no more saying mom and dad, no more saying he and she, and all that. They got all that, which is very confusing because how do you know which friend wants to go by which thing? They have to wear a pin, they have to wear a thing of what they want to go by now, and all this kind of shit, and then you got to memorize all those different pronouns of what each person wants to go by. And if you go outside that boundary and you call them something that they're, oh, I forgot what he is. I forgot he wants to be called homo. Okay, well, then if he wants to be called homo, and you forgot that one time, we'll let you off. But now that's your first strike. If you go next time and you call him queer rather than homo, he don't go by queer. Queer is something that he's not. So if you call him a homo, you're fine. But if you call him something else out of that box, then you're now going to get a second strike. And then third strike, you're suspended from school or banned from the internet or all these things. This is fucking weird. This doesn't make any sense. Or I'm supposed to remember all this kind of shit? It doesn't make any sense. It shouldn't even make sense to the people that are insisting on it. It shouldn't even make any sense because they're not even able to do it. They're not able to keep up with it. I'm watching them and they can't keep up with it. Biden don't know what TGBGI. He's making up fucking letters as he's going along, right? But he supposedly believes in it so much. It's ridiculous. It's all nonsense. So I said to this couple, and I said, so you're okay with it that if your daughter tomorrow goes to school and tells her teacher, I feel more like a man than a woman, you do know that the school, by the new laws that have been in place now already for a few years, but they're more in step now. They're increasing the laws, so that teachers are not, or any school person, even a janitor, cannot come out and say, hey, I overheard your kid talking to his friends and saying that he felt like a boy, and like, can't. You're not allowed to talk to the parents about it anymore because that would be going against their freedom of privacy, right? That's their Freedom of Privacy Act bullshit, right? That's how they're playing it. So therefore, your daughter can go and start receiving treatment right away, medicine. She can schedule a sex change operation, and he starts shaking his head no. He's like, no, no, no. And I'm like, yes, yes. You said you didn't know that? I said, come on, man, we live in Mass. It's bad here, and it's like this in a lot of states. I mean, more than half the states are all going forward with these laws. Some of them have already had them on the books for a few years. So, no, I'm telling you, go look for yourself. So I said, so you're going to be okay with that, though, right? And he's thinking about it. And he's thinking about it. He's like, well, I don't know. I'm like, really, Jay, there shouldn't be anything to think about. You know, it should be, fuck you. No, you're not doing nothing. I'll decide. We'll decide as a family and what, we're going to help our daughter with and help her figure out life. I mean, I'm like, I would even go a step further, Jay. I said to him, I would even say, why are we talking about any sexualization of our children? I mean, I was telling my friends that I was having sex at 13, 14, 15, 16, but I wasn't. I was just lying about it because everyone else was, I'm assuming, lying too. There might have been a couple people that might have been really getting laid that were dating older women and my friends and older girls, I should say, back then. They're dating a girl, you're 13, 14, 15, dating an 18, 19-year-old girl, then yeah, you're probably getting laid. And then there was all these other circumstances, but otherwise, it wasn't happening as much as, at least, I mean, when I found my dick later and I really found interest in it and I started to find myself, yeah, then I was going out and getting laid all the time, but not at that young age. So they're already kindergarten, first grade. Come on, man. I wanted to think about cars and wrestling with your friends and nature and climbing trees and climbing mountains and doing all. We don't do none of that shit, our kids, anymore now. The kids just don't do any of it. Going outside, human contact, and knew everybody. I knew everybody in my town, just like we all did back then. Back when I was a kid, that's the way it was in every town. As a matter of fact, it even went from town to town. Because all these, oh, he's from Holyoke, oh, he's from Chicopee, oh, he's from South Hadley, oh, okay. And then we'd all hang out with each other. A lot of times we'd fight with each other. A lot of times we'd get along with each other, just depending on the mood. Or whatever we were programmed to do that month, So, anyways, it's just amazing that nobody realizes any of this shit, and you would say until it's too late, but that's not actually the case either. It's not a matter of it's too late. It was already too late 60 years ago. Now, you talk a lot, Jordan, about Marxism, Marxist, whatever the term is. I didn't even know a lot about it. I've stayed away from Marxism all my life just because of just bad things that I've heard about it. You hear little bits and pieces of how it works and what it's all about and everything, and it never sounded good to me. I do believe that the capitalist system was definitely the best system so far, if it was real and if it was true, but it's not, and it wasn't, unfortunately. So I know you're going to have a hard time with it. I'll try to explain in further videos. I only got a few minutes left on this one, but I will try to come back to that point again later, because I think, again, you'll see it all and get it all real quick. Um, As a matter of fact, I don't even know how much of it I'll get into because I got into it in the Candace Owen series. So maybe I'll just go back and grab bits of that kind of shit, so I don't take a chance of getting getting hit on what I'm saying, because I know that already exists. That the vocals on that one already exist, and I didn't get whacked on it, so I might do that. Because all these rights, the freedom of speech and everything that you're talking about, we've never had freedom of speech as the down lows. We really haven't. The programmers have had it. The politicians have had it. School teachers have had it. Anybody else gets shut down. If you're working in a board, let's say a town board, or a chamber of commerce, or a union board, or a company board, a CEO of a company, and you have boards, right? Any of these boards that you go to, you always have the same shit that you and Rogan were complaining about on the news channels. You got 3 to 5 minutes to put together all these thoughts that take hours, days, weeks, and months to even go over and establish and conversate about, and you get 3 minutes to fucking give it. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? And then even the people that are on the board, they're all in a rush to go somewhere. They, to be televised meetings, email meetings, and phone conversation meetings that are groups. Everybody gets a minute or two to talk each before you have to move on, and that's supposed to be out of respect for everybody to get a chance to say something. But that means that nobody gets a chance to say anything because conversations aren't being had. So you get a bunch of 3 minutes of talking points from each person because they want to put together as much as they can to make you understand 3 weeks of conversation in a 3-minute time period. It's ridiculous. It's not going to fucking happen. So the whole freedom of speech thing was already gone for a long, long time. At the beginning of politics, it was already gone. And then the other thing is, okay, so you have to go get an education to become a teacher or a doctor like yourself, Jordan. And if you want to be in the press, you have to go to get an education. If you want to have a business, you should take some business courses. It all reads to me as going back to indoctrinations of all different sorts. So you can take your choice of what you want to be a liar about. What the hell you want to be a priest? You can even go to priest college, right, to be the best priest that you can. But if you don't do any of those things, which is the majority of the population, graduate high school, be happy, go on with life, be the lobsters, the bottom feeders, right? You're going to be the lobsters of life. You're going to take your serotonin, drink your serotonin, get your adrenaline, and live life as a bottom feeder. You're not going to have any say in anything. There's no freedom of speech for everybody. There was always a freedom under the conservative Republican under the conservative Republic of Canada and United States, and matter of fact, pretty much most of freaking Europe, if you think about all of it. All the Americas, all the way through all the Western countries. Yeah, pretty much. Because even if they're not all at the same time, all at different times, and nowadays, for the most part, all of them have this going for them. And it's terrible. It's fucking terrible. So unless you're one of these, what we call higher ups, then you can't even influence anybody because you don't have any say. But yet, if you're an actor or an actress, which all come from these same families, right? They make it seem like once every 5 years, 10 years, maybe they claim nowadays might be every year, that an outsider is allowed in. But it's never really an outsider, is it? Never really is. If you check their family history, you're always going to find out that they're again related to these, like you yourself, related to somebody in the last few hundred years of whether on whatever side, because there's so many sides. When we say divided, it's not only divided once, it's not only divided twice, it's not only divided again a third time, it's divided over and over and over again. So we got so many different things. So if you and I can agree on boy and girl, doesn't mean we're going to agree on black and white. And if we don't agree on black and white, doesn't mean we're going to agree on in and out. We may not agree on up and down. We may not agree, which we won't. We won't agree side by side or side to side. We're not going to agree on any of these things, right? We might be off on some of them. So that's division, and it's division over and over and over again, which is fine, but at least acknowledge what we have done, acknowledge that we stole the false creator / creator's work, and we as humans are running the fucking real show now. What am I already at 50 minutes? Alright, that's all I got. We'll be back.